This is how you handle logistical money objections. First of all, what is a logistical money objection? Is basically when you handle objections in the beginning, you want to assume that it is logistical, meaning that they want to do it, but they genuinely cannot because of actual concrete reasons. Reason for that is because when you just assume that it is fear-based, and then you try to do some mindset reframes, try to just slap them around with mindset, when in reality, they may needed a payment plan. That was pretty much it. So that's why we first want to go through logistical money first. I remember at my last company, there was one rep, and they were just objection handling this guy for literally like an hour and a half. And so they're doing like the fear reframes. Hey man, what happens if you don't do this? Like how much longer I want to tolerate? They're going through all that. And then after an hour and a half, the closer, the rep was like, finally, hey dude, if you want, we can do financing. And then the prospect was like, you have financing? And the rep was like, yeah. And the prospect was like, dude, you should have told me an hour and a half ago. I would have just done the financing. And then the prospect did the financing, got approved, and then they bought. So this is why. So when you do, first of all, logistical money is quicker instead of you going to have to go through fear first, right? So you handle this quick because they may just needed a payment plan, right? A call I hopped on the other day, the person was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna, maybe I'll do another program. They gave me that objection, maybe I'll get back to you. And then I just gave them a payment plan and they bought. Right. So, but if I would have went through like the whole reframe was like this program, that objection, then that would have been like an hour, right? Whereas I just gave them payment plan that took like 30 seconds to say it and then they bought. So this is why you want to do this first. Okay. So whatever objection they give you, let me think about it. Let me talk to my partner. I'm skeptical. I've been burned before. I don't have the time. Handle logistical money first. So you'll say, okay, so the funds required to learn the skills to get to 10K a month is 5K. How do you want to proceed? I really want to do this, but I don't have the money. Think about it, whatever it may be. Yeah, that's all good. Money aside, do you feel like this could help you get to where I want to go? They say yes. Oh, why is that? And they'll say this. And also a way to, because sometimes here you may get like, well, because like I said, the coaching, so on and so forth. The reason why you still want to ask them, hey, like, why is that? Is because it gets them buying to the buying state. Because like it gets them to persuade themselves, like, oh, like I need this because of this reason. One way I found, because this does seem a bit repetitive, I found if you ask them like, well, why is that besides whatever they just told me? So why is that besides the one-on-one coaching? Why is that besides the step-by-step process? And they'll be like, because I need the community aspect, so on and so forth. Okay, so is it more so the upfront amounts, or if it could help you break this up into more digestible chunks, would that make it easier for you? They'd be like, oh, yeah. Or they'd be like, well, depending on the payment plan. And if they said depending on the payment plan, you can say something like, oh, would you like me to walk you through it? Would you like me to walk you through it? They'll be like, yeah. Reason why you want to ask that, because if they're asking you, if they flip the question back on you, you want to get them back into, you want to get that buy-in, right? So you want to get them to want to like ask about this stuff. And then depending on what your offer is, if you sell some sort of ROI offer, meaning that business coaching, helping them make more money, you can say this. Because as you can imagine, people don't have these skills yet. Like, getting the pricing right with the Airbnb and delegating, they may not have the whole amount to do the whole thing all at once. So what we do typically do is we can break it up into half and half, equal amounts, 30 days apart. Would that help you out? So the reason why you asked is this, I learned this from Matt Ryder, is this gets them to build more of a gap because as you can imagine, you're not saying in a condescending way, but you're saying in an understanding way while still building a gap between where they are now to where they want to go, right? Because as you can imagine, people don't have these skills yet, like being able to generate leads, being able to close. They may not have the whole offer amount to do the whole thing all at once, right? So in that case, now if you don't sell an ROI offer, you can just skip this because it doesn't make sense, right? So you want to go through the 2Pay first. Okay, so you want to work your way down because it's a lot harder to roll the rock uphill than it is to roll the rock downhill, right? And here also, if they ask you about the financing, do you guys have any financing option? And you can say something like, oh, yes, but you may not get approved for it. That's the thing with financing, right? So would you like me to walk you through some in-house payment plan options first? They'd like say yes. Because what you don't want is you skipping through the financing. Because if they get approved, yes, that's good, but they may get denied, which is a huge possibility. And if they get denied, they feel like shit and they don't want to try anymore. So if you don't have to, you don't want to get to the place of discussing financing in the first place. So you go through 2Pay and they say, yeah, would that help you out? And they'll either say yes or no, right? And they'll say yes. Then you say, how do you want to proceed from here? And then they say, let's do it. Then you proceed with the sale. And if they give you another objection, depending on what the objection is, then you proceed with the process. If they say something like, well, I still can't do that, it just doesn't work, and then you go through the 3 pay, right? Now, if they give you a fear-based objection, then you handle that, which is in the other section. But let's say they still want to do it. I can't do that amount right now. Okay, so we typically don't, but we could do 3 payments of 2,000, 30 days apart. Would that make it easier? So at that point, they'll say yes or no. If they say yes, okay, cool. Where do you want to go from here? Either a sale or another objection happen. If they say I still can't do that, and you proceed to below. Now, depending on your payment options, depending on how long the program is, right? And you gotta kind of get a gist for it. So you gotta find out, either if you don't know your own data, ask your sales manager or the business owner, hey, what's the payment plan failure rate? Okay. Meaning that, for example, if like 70% of the people, if you do a 4 pay, they all fall off, but 3 pay, like 9% of people just keep paying, then you want to avoid the 4 pay, because what's the whole point of that? Like they cannot pay, right? At my last company, one of the offers we were selling, there was a 6 pay option. It was 18 grand. And the data was that like 80 to 90% of people stop paying after month 2, right? On a 6 pay. So, but if they did like a 3 pay or 4 pay, like most of them just made all the payments. So that's when I was like, other reps were keep doing the 6 pay, but I stopped doing the 6 pay, because when people ask me, do you have can we break into 6 because of a 6 month program? It's like, yeah, we typically don't. The smallest option we would have is either this or that, like a 3 pay or 4 pay. And then they were like, okay, that's the only option. Yes, that's the only option. I was like, yes, and they get them to the 4 pay. And then, because like, what's the whole point? They're gonna pay for like 3K, and then out of it, just been better off selling a 3K or 10K program in the first place. You know what I mean? So like that's the whole point. So you gotta find that stuff out. But generally speaking, once a program goes beyond 3Pay, the payment plan success rate goes drastically down. Like the difference between a 3Pay and 4Pay is like very drastic, usually, generally speaking. Again, depending on data. So let's say 3Pay, they still can't do it. Then if you have financing option, this is how you frame the financing. Because if you just say, hey, we have financing options, some people might be like, okay. You want to replace the word financing with funding, because funding sounds not as kind of bad as financing. Financing, people have a more negative connotation towards it. If they ask you like, is that financing? You can just be like, yeah, pretty much it, right? So you want to find out their cash on hand and their credit score situation to find out, because if their credit score is 500, and typically your most financing option is 650 or higher credit score, is a good possibility of then getting approved. If they're like 400 or 500, you don't need to go through that process, because they'll flex shit anyway. You know what I mean? So you can ask, so after you cover your basic living expenses like rent and food, how much cash on hand are you working with at the moment, to see if we could help? And then they'll be like, not a lot. Okay, so you're working with like 500 cash in hand, 1K cash in hand. Like, I'm just trying to see if it can help you. So you go from that more compassionate frame, I guess. And then they'll be like, I'm working with 1K. Okay. So we do have different funding partners that might be willing to loan you the funds. And there's different options for that. It could be broken into 6 months interest free, could be 9, could be 12, really depends on your credits. So you just plug in whatever your funding option offers. But what a lot of people do is they get into the program this way. And as they get more profits using the strategy we coach them on, they pay off the funding that way to avoid most of the interest, if not all the interest. Would that help you? Now let's break down what we're doing here. What a lot of people do. What is that? Herd mentality. People want to follow what other people are doing. It comes from evolutionary psychology, because people, when we were living in caveman times, we want to survive. How we survive is seeing what other people are doing, right? Not the best way of going about it in today's society, but this is how people function, right? We all do. So as they get into a program this way, and as they get more profit using the strategy we coach them on, they pay off the funding that way to avoid most of the interest without all the interest. So what does this do to avoid most of the interest of all the interest? This is the concern they're going to have anyway, the interest rate. You know what I mean? And so if you have like 6 months interest free, 12 months interest free, as long as they do the work, right? So you don't even have to imply that, hey, as long as you do the work, you'll get the results. Don't say stuff like that. But this almost like indirectly kind of shows them, right? It gives them more certainty and more comfort. Now, if you sell an offer, what's the non-ROI offer, meaning that they pay off the funding that way or they get more profits using the strategy we coach them on, you may just have to re-language this, meaning that so they get into the program this way, and as they get paid from their job and save up more money that way long term, they pay off the funding that way. You can kind of re-language it like that, right? Or just remove this. depending on what you sell. Would that help you? They'll say yes or no. Yes, proceed to below. And if they say no, that's another, we got to go for different reframes and different objections. We'll go over another different video. But this, we're just going through logistical money. So yes, at that point, you get the buy-in, and then you go through the more nitty-gritty, which is cool. What's your credit score to see if it might be able to, if you might be eligible? What's your credit score to see if it could help, to see if it might be eligible? You want to ask that kind of languaging. You want to do like to see if you might be eligible, because people are kind of sensitive a bit, about talking about money and the credit score, stuff like that. But when you say to see if you might be eligible, you're providing a reason why. And you don't want to justify all of your questions. That's another salesperson thing. Like they try to justify to see if in every question. Don't do that because it sounds salesy. But on certain questions that could be potentially more invasive, when you provide a reason why, people want to answer it more. So at that point, you can determine, is the credit score good enough, credit score not good enough. Now, with funding and financing, credit score is not the only factor will they get approved or not. They also consider, again, depending on the funding firm, but in most cases, debt to income ratio. Meaning that if they have more debt compared to their income, then even if they have a 700 credit score, they still might get denied. Right now, we don't know their debt to income ratio, but the only thing we can go off of is the credit score. Right now, if typically your funding partner, people get approved 650 or higher, but if the person's credit score is 620, you can still give that a shot, right? But if it's something crazy like 400 or 500, not even worth giving a shot, right? Because they'll feel like shit anyway. So if their credit score is good enough, you can be like, okay, that's not bad. So what we can do from here, it's like I can send you the link for the funding, and you can apply for funding from your end. Want to do that? They'll be like, yes. All right, cool. And then you send them the link, and be like, hey, I just sent you the link. Did that come through? They'll be like, yes. Cool. And again, while they're filling out the funding, there'll be some dead space. And while you do that, you want to preface this. And no need to get heartbroken if that doesn't get approved. That totally happens. In that case, I'm still here to help you explore other options as well. So no worries. Okay. So you see that. Reason why is because when people get denied funding, they feel like shit. And when they feel like shit, they want to stop trying, like we talked about. So, and we want to normalize that, hey, you might get denied, and that's totally normal. Because it's just like the 8 Mile movie, when Eminem goes on the rap battle, the first stage, he gets smoked by the other guy. Like, he's like, hey, you're white, you're this, you're this. So Eminem has nothing to say. He loses, he chokes, he has nothing else to say. Next rap battle, he goes on. Eminem says, yes, I am white. I do live in a trailer park with my mom. So what? And then he just smokes the other guy, and the other guy has nothing else to say. So this is what happens. If you say the quote unquote flaws or the quote unquote potential negatives, then now the impact's not as bad. So if they get approved, just proceed with the sale and stay calm. Okay. While they're clicking the buttons, reading through the terms, like give them space. That's totally fine. And if they get denied, again, reassure and normalize that totally happens. And man, like totally happens, especially in today's economy. And then you proceed to here, which is the next column. If your credit score is bad or they get denied, so you say something like, okay, cool. So what you could do is, if you have friends or family apply for funding under them, then you can just pay them back, right? Or another scenario that might happen, they may get approved, but they may not have enough money for the down payment of the financing. As an example, depending on the funding option, some funding options you can just get in with no money down. Those are fantastic. But some options you have to pay down like 500, 1K, 1.5K, so on and so forth. And they're like, oh, I got approved, but I don't have enough money for that. In that case, you can be like, hey, who in your friends or family who could potentially help you with getting approved for the funding under their name or help you with the down payment? Okay. And so that you can retire your parents, so that you can retire your wife, so that you can leave your job. And if they know someone, they'd be like, I don't know. Yeah, but if you really thought about it, though, right? So if they can think of someone, have them call the person while you're still on the call, right? Have them call them, or if they're in the same house, or are they home right now? Okay, could you go talk to them? I've done that too. So you want to shorten, right? Because what a lot of people do is like, all right, go talk to your sister, and then like let's see find out. Don't leave it up on their courts. You got to lead them. You got to lead them where to go as a salesperson, right? Because they're not going to just walk into the sale by themselves. You got to lead them. You got to let them know, like, you got to help them out. So, and you want to shorten it. Don't put barriers in front of you if you don't have to. So if let's say they want to go talk to their sister, it's like, hey, so is your sister home right now? Okay, could you go talk to them right now? And I'll be right here. Actually, better off if you can bring them like back, like bring the sister to the Zoom call in front of me so you can talk to them as well, right? Because they may have questions and concerns. That's even better. So do that, or just like have them call the sister. You know what I mean? So hey man, if you're on Zoom, for example, hey, if you want, like, you can just mute yourself and you can just call your sister. If you're just on a phone call, be like, hey, you can put me on hold, you can call your sister, right? So, and if they don't answer, you go through the next steps. If no one, you proceed with the next steps. So you want to help them get resourceful. Do not. So some closers fall into the trap of they take to the sale. Prospect says they don't have the money, and they just, and okay, so just reach out to me whenever you get the money. 9 times out of 10, they're not gonna fucking get back to you, because again, that's why they're prospects. That's why they have the problems they have in their life, because they're not taking charge. Now we cannot do it for them, but what we can do is hold them accountable and help them do the things. And so don't feel like some closers feel better about, oh, that guy was broke, so they didn't buy it, as a justification of not making the sale. But the sale's not over, right? So you want to keep hold them accountable, get them resourceful, getting the money, and follow up with them. This is how you get the sale. If I didn't do these follow-ups, I would have been losing out on 5 to 8K a month in commissions just from not doing follow-ups and just by not doing this, right? That adds up to about 60K a year, about 100K a year. Will Odoms, who I also sold with on Sales Snapper, Will Odoms, he closed more deals from follow-ups than his one-call closes, right? Matt Ryder, when he was closing at 96%, 50% of those came from his one-call close and 44% came from his follow-ups. So you can imagine, if you're not doing this, you're losing out on basically another part. If you're making 5K a month right now, you could be losing out on 5K a month right now, right? You could be at 10K a month. So this is why we do this. So you want to get them resourceful. Okay, so there's a difference between being broke and being poor. Do you know the difference? They'd be like, no, what is it? It's the difference in willingness. Because a poor person is financially poor and they don't do anything about it, so they stay poor. And there's another person who may not have much money at the moment, but if they're willing to make a change in their life, they'll go find ways to get the money together to get the help that they need. So are you open and willing to be resourceful so that you can retire your parents? So you keep drilling into their brain. Hey, this is why I'm doing this. It's not even about the 10K a month. It's like, this is why we're doing this, bro. This is why you want to retire a wife. You want to send your kids to private school, right? They'd be like, yes. And if you've done a good job on your sales call, then you should have gotten a yes. If no, then it's a symptomatic issue of you not building enough urgency, not finding big enough problem, or they're getting fear, which in that case, a Band-Aid approach is you got to handle that. And in order to fix the root cause, you got to do a better job at discovery, which is in the other section. But let's say, yes, I am. Okay, why? Because I need to do this. Otherwise, I'm going to keep being stuck in my job. So what this does, you want to ask why on things that's going to facilitate the sale. Because when you say why, they explain why, and they're justifying their position on why they need to do that thing. So you want to do that thing on something that's positive, that's going to benefit the sale. Now, at this point, you can make a decision, right? This is more like a strategic thing. So if you have different down sales, like drop sales, let's say you have a 10K, that's a core program, but you have a 3K, that's a drop sale. Another trap is that people just fall into the trap of just resorting down to the drop sale right away because it's the easier route, right? You don't want to do that. You want to stick with the main core program. This is how you increase your cash collection. Your close rate may go down, but overall your commission usually increase, right? This is what I found. And so close rate itself, it's not the most accurate metric. It's not meaningless, but it is it doesn't tell the full story. So at this point, let's say you're trying to get them resourceful, trying to get them to the core program, right? Then you say something like this. All right, because as long as you're committed to change, I'm committed to helping you make this happen. So when do you feel will be a reasonable time frame for you to get the money together so you can retire your wife? Reasonable is a good language because they'd be like, yeah, let me think about that one. And let's say they say 6 months. You want to challenge that, get that to half. You want to add more urgency to it. So 6 months. I challenge you to get that together within 3 months. And you let it sit there. They'd be like, okay. All right. And then if they say 1 month, I challenge you to get that together within 2 weeks. Are you committed to doing that? They'd be like, yes. All right, perfect. And then at that point, you ask them, okay, so what's your plan? What's your plan on getting the money together if you haven't already talked about it? And then at that point, they'd be like, I don't know. You can ask them, if you really thought about it. If they still don't know, then you go through different options. These are the more common ones. I'll also there's an email template I used to send people. It's like 54 or something ways, different ways of finding the money, and I'll try to attach that if I can find it. But these are the main core ones, right? Okay, so could you reallocate the money you're already spending? For example, Netflix subscriptions, cigarettes, eating out, going to the pub, like things that are not helping you anyway. Like which ones could you reallocate? I guess I could, stop eating out so often. Like, okay, great. What else? Could you like who in your friends or family if you haven't already talked about that, right? And also, okay, so you can sell like some people sell things around their house, like spare electronics, spare vehicle, furniture, TV. Like you watching your TV, how's it going to help you get to your goal, right? Like which ones can you sell and put it up on Facebook Marketplace, or sell it to people you already know? Cameras, okay. Could you work more hours in your current job? Or could you get drive Uber Eats, DoorDash, Instacart before after work and or on weekends? And so none of this is sexy, right? If they're like, yeah, I'm working a lot of hours. Well, dude, if you don't get the money together, then like how would you be able to get out of your job or not happy in the first place? How much longer I want to stay there? Would you rather choose short-term comfort or long-term comfort? They're like, yeah, you're right. And I've had plenty of prospects where they're doing their Instacart every day. They're like, dude, I just to get like this much more Instacart to get the money. The moment they get the money from Instacart, I call them, they call me, and then we get them in. And also, this depends on the offer too. When I was selling sales training, I could also, if they genuinely don't have the money, then I'll be like, dude, could you ask your company to fund your training? That way you can make more money for the business, make the business look better. They'd be like, I could talk to them. And I've gotten sales that way too. And if you have an offer like that, where like if you have like the company to pay for it, let's say you do like a career coaching or whatever it may be, and then you can have their company to pay for it or something like that, you want to kind of be creative. And also you can offer other funding options. If you already haven't, Amex Blue is one. What Amex Blue basically is interest-free credit card option for 15 months. Okay. So this typically works better for 650 plus credit score or higher at the time of this recording. And then when you click that, basically they'll give you a button that says apply. And so you just apply now. There we go. And then you can kind of read through it. And what happens is if they get approved, then they typically get a virtual card number. So they get the credit card number they can use to buy right on the spot. And oftentimes, but sometimes if they don't get it, have them check their email, spam and promotions. And if they still can't find it, sometimes, rarely, they need to get the card mailed in to their mail. So that takes about like a few business days. In that case, you want to keep them in touch using there'll be another section in the process section of this course where it'll say keeping deposit leads warm or keeping logistical money leads warm, something like that. So you want to go through that process so they don't fall through the cracks, keep them warm. Okay. So that's how you go through it. Now, if you do have a downsell, so this again is a strategy thing. Let's say, okay, so it's going to take them forever to get the money together, and then it'll be better if they get into the downsell, and then once they start applying the drop sell, then they could get more money together to go into the high ticket, right? If that's the route, then the drop sell scripting. So if money is the only thing getting in the way, but you're committed to change, I'm committed to helping you change. So what a lot of people do, if cash is a bit tight, they first get started with the XYZ program name, right? The low ticket product name. And let's say it's like trading foundations, right? In trading foundations, you get and you kind of explain the deliverables, right? Like 2 or 3 things. Don't get into feature mode, get into how we're going to solve the problem, right? So in the trading foundations, we still help you. You get the trade alerts, so you know what to trade. You get the risk management, so you don't lose a whole bunch of money, things like that. And just so we're clear, and you just don't get the coaching calls or whatever, right? So you just like make sure you make the discrepancy clear. Now, just so we're clear, yes, there are people in trading foundations that get to that 20 grand a month if that was their goal. But more realistically, maybe it gets them to only 7 grand a month, right? But you mentioned 7 grand a month if they're making like less than 7 grand a month, because they'll still be like, oh, 7 grand a month, still not bad. And what they do at that point is they use the material in trading foundations, start making some money, and they use that money, reinvest it into their skill set, and getting to trading accelerator and get the personalized coaching, then get to that 20 grand a month that way. Do you feel like that would be a better start? So now let's kind of break down what we just did. So So you want to be like, hey, this is like is something is better than nothing. That's what we're trying to do here. And so what a lot of people do, again, herd mentality, get here, and we want to downplay, almost kind of downplay the initial goal, but it's still better than the current situation, right? They only get to 7 grand a month because in their mind they're like, that's still pretty good. And also, you use the word like them, right? Like it gets them, because you don't want to say you will get to 7K a month. You don't want to guarantee things like that. So you want to use more like neutral languaging. And then, yeah, so like, do you feel like that would be a better start? They're like, yes. Okay, how so? And then get them to explain their position, and then you complete the low ticket sale. Also, what you can do is you want to explore. Okay, low ticket. Let's say front end program is 10K. Low ticket is 3K. 3K, can you do that? Okay, 2Pay, can you do that? 3Pay, can you do that? No. Then try apply for the funding for the low ticket, because if they get denied for 10K because it's a high amount, but if they apply for 3K, they may get approved if they're kind of, unless their credit score is so bad, like 500 or 400. And then from there, you want to complete the low ticket sale, stay in touch with them, nurture them, and upsell them. And that'll be in the upsell section of the program. But you want to keep farming these people. That's how you get like turn a 3K sale, turn a no sale into a 3K, into a 10K, into an 18K sale. That's what you do. So you want to have this ecosystem going on. Imagine if you do that with every lead, what kind of difference would that make with your commissions? So memorize this, okay? Practice to say it out loud. And the next time you get an objection, you take them through this process first. All right. See you in the next video.